And I remember y'all told me, you're like, hey, you lack vision. Man, that stung. It pissed me off. I didn't agree with it at the time.
If you can get ahead of it and help someone see something that they don't see, like a blind spot, I think you become more valuable to them as a leader.
Here's the advice that I give to anybody about a job.
Elaborate on that so people really understand what that means.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things to talk about, especially when it's somebody that reports to me that is wanting to move up in the company. And look, I've given that advice to people in other departments as well. But when it comes to
Our guest of the day, Mr. David Broome, our director of our estimating team, and maybe the best damn estimating team.
cut out the word maybe.
Okay,
You're
perfect.
close.
Okay, good. Could you say it for us, just so everybody knows?
Yeah, absolutely. David Broome, director of the best damn estimating team on the planet.
Okay, there we go. That was the one.
There we go.
All right, Broome. Yeah, thanks for being on.
Pleasure.
I've known you for over a decade now at this point.
Yeah.
We spent some time, obviously, here at Blue Hammer. Most folks may not know you're one of the OG guys of Blue Hammer, so you've been around since inception. You're here today. You've seen a bunch happen, so we'll talk a little bit about that. I've known you from, we won't mention the name of the business we worked at, LA Fitness, for many years together. And yeah, so we got a lot to talk about today. For the people that may not know you, who is David Broome outside of Blue Hammer?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up here in Texas, went away to school in Oklahoma, went to the great University of Oklahoma, Boomer. Piss off a lot of Longhorn fans today, as usual. But yeah, I was in the fitness industry for a long time. That's where you and I knew each other. Prior to that, I did water parks for a long time. I did that for a decade. Outside of work stuff, happily married. My wife Stephanie, we met about 10 years ago. We've got 2 dogs. I've got a really cool chocolate lab. That was like the first dog that was like my dog. Huge dog person. You know, nothing against cats and stuff like that, but definitely love dogs. But yeah, I like to stay active in my spare time. I don't mind kind of relaxing and taking things easy, in certain moments, but I really like to be active. I find that if I spend too much time just sitting around doing nothing, it really messes with my head. It's part of what drew me to the gym industry. I've always liked, working out and being active. I love summertime. I love swimming. Anytime there's water, I always just want to jump right in. Probably just kind of going back to my water park days. But yeah, that's the gist of it. And yeah, from the get-go, I always knew I wanted to go into roofing.
Nice. Yeah. I feel like we all did, right?
Yeah, we're just destiny.
Yeah.
Gotta go into
100%.
roofing.
Saw a roof and like, hell yeah, that's where I belong.
Shingles, fascinating.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's all of our origin story. So
For sure.
That's awesome. Hey, catch us up a little bit. Let's go back. I want to talk a little bit about the past. Tell us a little bit about what, childhood Broome was like. And, he wasn't always an ops guy, so catch us up a little bit. Take us back, like, not too far back, but enough to let's talk middle school, high school. What was that like coming up?
Yeah.
Who
So
were
my origin story is a lot different than like yours and like some of the owners, with you guys like starting up Blue Hammer. I hear y'all talking about like kind of growing up like a little bit rougher around the edges. I actually had a really cushy childhood. My parents are awesome, super close to them. My parents have a really healthy marriage, which I've always modeled, wanted to model my future marriage at the time. And now my marriage with Stephanie, I always wanted to model it after after the marriage that my parents have. But yeah, I grew up in a really loving home. Grew up in Arlington. I always hear you talking shit about Arlington.
That's the hood, man. I know you say it's cushy, but
I
that's
know.
the hood.
Yeah, I moved out of Arlington not that long ago. We're just a little bit further south.
So
We're
you made it out the hood.
Made it out of the hood.
Yeah.
We're in Mansfield now. A little bit nicer version of Arlington.
Yeah.
But yeah, middle school, elementary school. I was always kind of that guy that wanted to do like all of the like nerdy like contests and stuff. So I was in like the spelling bee and like the speech contests.
Onomatopoeia.
Onomatopoeia. Yeah.
Spelling bee.
I cannot spell that. I could
So
give
you
it
weren't really winning the spelling bees. You were participating.
my winning word was hilarious. My winning word, it was either 5th or 6th grade, was toothache, which is like the easiest word ever.
What?
Yeah, so I'm up there.
Just for the sake of hilarious.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Toothache. TOOTHACHE. And you always have to do it really monotone like that. You can't be like excited.
And then you got to say the word at the end, right? To like solidify.
I can't remember. It was that was like 5 or 6 years ago, or 30, something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was kind of funny that it got down to like 2 of us, and we were spelling like fairly hard words, at least for 6th graders. And then my opponent got like a really hard word. I don't even remember what it was, and she missed it. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh my gosh, and toothache. And I was like, all right, I think I got this.
Nice.
So,
Destiny.
yeah, but one of my proudest moments from elementary school, this one was in 5th grade, was when I really started getting into public speaking. So my mom was in this group at her work, Toastmasters. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but it's basically like adults that like get together,
Yeah.
and like learn how to speak.
Yes.
And so I would go and like, attend some things. And my mom was always a pretty good public speaker. And I had this idea that I just wanted to go enter this speech contest. And I was like 11 years old. And my mom helped me, write a speech, and we would practice it, and she would give me pointers and things like that. And I think that's what kind of helped me grow into an adult that wasn't really, stressed out about public speaking.
Nice. That's pretty cool.
I've never really been scared of it. I mean, yeah, here and there you get the jitters sometimes.
Sure.
Even now, like before this, you kind of start thinking about stuff, and then once you settle in, like you just kind of get going. But that was really cool. I went to like 5 levels of competition in the second year that I did it. And I ended up going to state, and I ended up winning the whole thing. And I got like a $1,500 scholarship. Factor in inflation, that's probably the equivalent of, I don't know, $4 or $5 grand or something like that these days. So that was really cool.
Nice.
Yeah. And then, junior high was kind of awkward like it is for everybody. I didn't have like a terrible time in junior high, but I didn't really love junior high. You're kind of trying to figure out who your friends are. So I don't really have a whole lot to talk about with junior high. But man, in high school, had a blast in high school.
Were you the man?
I was always the man.
Yeah, for sure. Like
Yeah.
jock, nerd.
Wasn't really the jock.
What's the?
Yeah,
goth?
I just kind of hung
I
out.
can see goth, Broome.
I was definitely not goth. No.
Fair enough.
No, I was just kind of the guy that I had a lot of friends, and I was fairly popular, and I found a really good group of friends in high school. A lot of them I'm still friends with to this day.
Nice.
Really loved high school. I think it was how old was I? I was turned like 16 years old, got my first job at a water park. I'd been going to Hurricane Harbor as a guest my whole life. And then I was like, oh, that'd be kind of a cool job. And what's crazy is that decision when I was 16 years old to go apply at this water park job, everything that's happened in my life was like the result of that. It's like that led to the next thing, led to the next thing. And all of those things ended up with me being at Blue Hammer today and being married to the person that I'm married to. Like all of it started right there.
It's all one, right? When you look back and you're mature enough, you realize it's all connected. And like how this one decision over here may have had you do all of this, but it ultimately led you right over here. And in most cases, and actually in all cases, exactly where you need to be in that moment.
Yeah.
And even I think back at my professional history, like my true professional history, which started at the age of 18. I started working at 14 at a Dairy Queen, so I'm not going to count that as a professional history. I was cleaning toilets, but
Still a job.
Yep, still a job.
Technically.
100%. But my true professional history started at 18 years of age, and that's when I joined the fitness industry. And if you think about how we met, if you think about the partners of Blue Hammer, you think about some of the processes, the things we say, like where did it all come from? It came from that variation, right? So I'm a huge believer it's all one and it's all connected, and you will be exactly where you need to be. So it's good having you here today. I want to wrap up the childhood piece with two questions for you, okay?
Sure.
One, who do you believe was the more influential and or impactful of the two parents? Sorry, mom or dad, whichever one you don't choose, but you got to choose one. And then my second question would be is if someone met you from your childhood today, what would surprise them the most about the Broome that we see here?
Yeah, so let's start in order. So with my parents, so the one that I'm not going to choose would want me to choose the one that I'm going to choose.
Okay.
I'm choosing my mom for sure. And my dad, I truly believe that if I chose my dad, he would actually be a little disappointed to hear that. Because, I mentioned a few minutes ago that I have very high standards in terms of who I wanted to marry. I was like, I'm going to get married one time, and we're going to get married, and that's going to be that. And if I can't find that person, then I'm not going to do it, and I'll just be single, and that's fine too. So I had very high standards because I watched the way that my dad just loved on my mom. I have these super specific memories where I would just be like hungry and want to go to lunch, and my dad would be like, "Yeah, we'll go, but we're going to wait on your mother." And it might be 2 hours before my mom was ready, running errands or whatever, but like, we're going to wait on my mom. Like we would go to church, and sometimes I would forget, and I would go like sit on like the wrong side. And my dad was like, no, you go over there, you sit next to your mother. So your mom's in the middle. So she's surrounded by people that she loves. So it was just, everything was just very like centered there. And I knew that that's what I wanted. I wanted to feel about a woman the way that my dad felt about my mom. And it was really cool because, you know, I had some friends that didn't have as awesome of parents as I did. Most of my friends had really good parents, but here and there, you know, you might have a friend. Yeah, you should get a mix. But, you know, people would tell me, they would be like, dude, your mom's awesome. You're so lucky. And they weren't just saying it to say, because you can sniff that out.
Of course, of course.
So definitely pick my mom. You know, she was just always like the moral compass of the family. You know, if you like let a curse word slip, like I think I even said shit a little while ago. So I hope my mom doesn't watch that part. Oh shit. You too. She's going to come get you. But she was always that like moral compass of, you know, treat women the way that a woman should be treated, treat people the way that people should be treated, love God, do these things. And it was just always like that. So yeah, my mom for sure is the easy answer for that one.
You know what's really interesting about that answer is the bulk of that answer was about your dad.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very interesting answer. You were very clear in your answer that it was your mother, but everything that followed was about how your dad treated her and took care of her and respected her, which is probably one of the best answers that you could get because you just highlighted both of them. So
there was something my dad said, and he probably doesn't even remember saying it, but he told me one time, he goes, I've always just made sure that our marriage was gonna be successful because, you know, why would I want to mess that up when I found such a wonderful person? And you know, those words, they may not hit a certain way if you like read it like in a book, but when you're hearing your father say it and the look on the face and the tone and just the body language, I was like, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Awesome. Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. I appreciate that. Let's go to the second question. And the second question was
Already forgotten what it was.
Yeah, I know. It's all good. It happens. If someone from, you know, your childhood, and when I say childhood, I'm saying middle school, high school, if they were to see you today, and I know you're still friends with some of them, but they were to see that kid from middle school, high school, what would surprise them the most about you today?
That's easy because I hung out with some of my high school friends that I hadn't seen in a long time. This was probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Easy answer on this one. I'm going to pretend that I'm one of my friends that's being surprised. You're in roofing.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I am. That shocks anybody. Like, I think just kind of given what I was
let
like.
me throw a curveball in there. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Forget the besides the roofing.
Besides
part,
the roofing,
give me something a little bit more. Let's away from the roofing piece. Anything.
Ooh, man. God, that's like the number one thing. Actually, I do know what it would be. I think they would be shocked that I kind of got out of the normal job path. I know that still kind of has to do with roofing.
I get it though. Like out of the 9 to 5, like
the
took
9
a bet
to
on
5
yourself kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that when I was in high school, if you polled all of my friends and they were like, "Hey, what do you think David is going to end up doing?" They probably would have said things like, you know, business or finance. At one point in time, I wanted to be a cop. I still consider being policeman fairly, like, you know, quote unquote, like normal. So yeah, I think that they would have picked, you know, 10 different professions and like roofing and being on like the revenue side of things, like driving numbers. I don't think anybody would have guessed that for me. And I know I still brought it back to roofing.
Yeah. No, all good. I get different sentiments, fair enough. So you mentioned already, you know, the water parks. We met in the fitness industry. You were when I was still there, you were a district operations manager. So you were, you know, overseeing multiple clubs. What's been the biggest shift since moving from that industry to this industry? Like, I know there's a bunch, but there's some similarities and some parallels too, right? But what's like the biggest thing you're like, holy smokes, this is the one?
Yeah, I'll start with similarities and I'll go into differences if I can. So similarities, you know, overseeing a lot, you know, hiring people and holding people accountable. Those are the things that really stayed not necessarily the same, but very similar from like water parks, fitness, and now into roofing. In terms of roofing, I think the biggest shift for me is finally being able to just like go win and not have everybody breathing down my neck about how it got done and all the processes and all those things. It's like, sure, there's got to be processes. There's got to be things that are streamlined. But one of the things that I really love about, you and the other executives and just Blue Hammer in general is just like, y'all just want people to go win.
Yeah.
And if you're not winning, okay, let's dive into the processes and figure out why you're not winning. But like, there's been times where I've gone and like had success and nobody's really trying to nitpick how we got to that successful moment or to that victory. It's just like, oh, you won. That's great. So I think that was a big one for me. Working remote, I'm probably remote 50% of the time. I never thought I would have a remote job.
Yeah.
Ever. I mean, I was just always used to like being around people, with, water parks and fitness. It's like there's overhead music and there's kind of, it's just, you're just like around people all the time. So having like half of my time now where I'm like sitting in front of my laptop at my home, and then I go out and I go and get on a roof, or I do training, or I go to the office. It's just a totally different dynamic than what myself, my parents, or anybody I think would have predicted early on.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know, one of the biggest reasons why we manage the way that we do and always have, especially since the inception of Blue Hammer, is one of the things I've realized in previous endeavors is when you have someone on you all the time on every little thing, you are just smashing someone's creativity. Like you're just destroying like the kid in them. You're destroying the fun part. It's just like work, 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 work. And work has to get done. But doesn't mean it has to suck, and it doesn't mean it has to be boring. It should be fun at some capacity. You should have the flexibility to make big decisions, small decisions, and everything else in between. And I genuinely believe the moment you take that away from somebody, it starts to become a slow, painful death. And ultimately, it always ends the same way. They end up leaving, whether it's through termination or resignation. The end is always the same. So when you say that, it's like, okay, good. We're not doing everything right, but we're definitely doing some things right when our leaders feel like they have the ability to think on their own and make decisions on their own and don't feel like, oh, what if I do this? No, you are a grown man. You're experienced. You are in the role. So we got to trust you to do things in the role. We chose you for that role. And if not, then why did we put you in the role? I've never understood that about businesses and why they do that with people. It's a funny way to pigeonhole someone's success and keep them down. So, yeah, totally against that. I want to ask you this. You had obviously good career, district operations manager. You're making a salary and, probably some other, things in between. Why leave that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'll go a little bit prior to that and go to water parks and then hit your question head on. So when I was at water parks, I had this moment where I legitimately thought that if I could just make 40 grand, I would be good. And I would not need anything else ever. Maybe go up a little bit for inflation, but 40 grand was my marker. You know how that went. Mm-hmm. So when I got into, the fitness industry, I had this like notion where I was like, okay, I started as a single club manager, which is pretty typical. It took me like 5 years. Then I got into a multi-club role. But when I was in that single club role, I fell into that exact same trap. So I thought to myself, if I can just get this one promotion, I'll be good. And I won't want anything else. That's a very stupid thing to think. Like if I could go back in time in the moment when I was thinking or saying that, I would just slap myself and be like, hey, snap out of that. So yeah, that kind of luster wore off fairly quickly. And really the main reason that wore off, the money in my role was not as great as I wanted it to be. As I'm sure you're aware, in the fitness industry, on the operations side, you're not going to make as much money as on the sales side. Like when me and you were in similar roles, you were making more money than I was. That was just how it was going to be. But for me, it really had to do with just feeling like nobody was really pouring into my growth. Everything was very task oriented.
Sure.
I've got to go hire this person to run this club. I have to go fire this person. I have to go work on this like construction project at this club and be involved in that. It was just tasks.
Sure.
So for me, if you're just completing a series of tasks all the time, you're not really, I don't feel fulfilled from that.
Yeah.
I think there's people out there that are fulfilled by that, and that's fine. Like go make your money and enjoy your job. And if that works for you, I'm not knocking it. I can't do that.
Yeah.
So don't ever let that happen here. And I know that won't ever happen here.
Sure.
That's one of the things I like the most.
Yeah, I get that. I do. So you made the decision. All right, we met, did the whole interview stuff, and we're here today. What? And you kind of answered it, but like, what were you hoping for? Like, what was like the thing? And you kind of said it, maybe was it like the growth that you were looking for, where it wasn't so task oriented and you wanted to develop and get to the next level in life and mentally and all this other stuff? Or what, obviously the finance, besides money, what were you hoping for? And then, like, I remember you distinctly saying something along the lines of like you talking it over with Stephanie multiple times, and she was kind of the one that was like, all right, go do it. So talk to me a little bit about what had you tentative, and what were you looking for?
I was more worried about Stephanie not being on board, because I knew from the get-go that if Stephanie wasn't on board, it was not going to go well. Like, you just have to, especially when you're married. And at that point in time, we'd been married, I don't know, 3 years, I think.
Yeah.
So I knew that she had to be in on it. One of my favorite stories to tell, I know you've probably heard me tell this one multiple times, but I'll tell it. So I was thinking about leaving, and, I talked to Maria. So Maria hits me up. She's like, hey, how are things going in fitness? I was like, not that great. And she's like, hey, do you want to meet up? And I knew she was going to talk about roofing, because I knew what y'all were doing. And I specifically remember telling Stephanie, I was like, hey, this crazy lady named Maria is going to go try to pitch me to go like sell roofs. I'm going to tell her to kick rocks, but she's cool. It'll be good to catch up, and then I'll find another job. And Stephanie was like, all right, whatever. So I go do that, and I go meet with Maria, and everything that Maria is saying, I'm just like leaning in a little. I'm like, oh my gosh, this sounds good. I'm about to get into roofing. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And so I do.
Lady's a closer.
She is. She's a closer.
Don't. She's a closer.
She's sales for sure.
Yeah.
But for me, I wasn't really that tentative. Essentially what I wanted, and this is the answer that might surprise you. As much as we've talked about this, I think my answer is going to surprise you. I wanted peace. And I was craving peace.
And somewhere along the way, you felt Lenny, me, and Chico were
peace.
Wow.
I know.
You're a wild man, sir. Lenny, maybe.
But think about it this way.
Yeah.
Think about it this way. Here's the advice that I give to anybody about a job. And whether it's Blue Hammer or roofing in general, or I would tell this to somebody that wants to be a lawyer or a doctor or whatever. You must have these two things to be satisfied with your job. You must be satisfied with your pay, not content. Those are different. They're similar words, but they're different. You must be satisfied with your pay, and you must enjoy your job overall. Not every aspect of the job. I do not enjoy every aspect of this job, but that percentage is incredibly high. I'm way above the American average for what I enjoy about this job. So I wanted something that checked those boxes. When I was in fitness, there was these like tiny little slivers of time where I was able to check both of those boxes. Usually, depending on, which year it was and what was going on, I either was satisfied with my pay or I enjoyed the job overall. And there were just slivers where it was both.
Yeah.
In the end, I had neither. And that's really bad.
Yeah. Yes. Not a good place to be.
I tell people all the time, if you have one of the two, you should start looking for another job. If you have neither, it should be your top priority.
Yeah, you should have started looking 6 months ago.
You're way behind.
Yeah,
like, you need to be it needs to be every day.
Yeah. Yeah, it just leads to a very miserable life. And then you start taking it out on everyone else that loves you. Now you're hurting those relationships. It leads you into a dark hole. Because I think we've all been there at some capacity, right? Where it's like all the meaningful relationships are no longer as meaningful. And what you used to enjoy, you don't enjoy as much. What used to taste so sweet is just a little bit more bitter. Like it has a funny effect on not only your mental, but your physical as well. And everything starts going backwards. So I'm 100% with that. So let's get past that piece. I got one transitional question, okay?
Sure.
Because I've seen this shift happen. Again, ops guy, fitness industry. You're still in the ops world today. There's some salesmanship involved in your current role, whether it's making the sale with the team, and making the sale I use very lightly, right? Or with adjusters, with the PMs and the other departments. There has been a shift in how you view ops and sales, and elaborate on that, will you please?
Yeah, I mean, you see that like crazy look in my eyes that used to not be there. I know you see it.
I do, 100%. Yeah, that's that sales killer.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that was a tough transition for me. Like, you remember like early days.
I do.
So 5 years back, I started in 2020 at Blue Hammer, and I remember kind of being task oriented at the time.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I just got to go write this thing. I got to go make this call. I got to go do this thing. Like, very like task oriented. And what I really had to adjust up here was really just like admitting that most businesses are just going to value sales more than operations. They're just going to. You know, in the moment in the fitness industry, I thought that maybe it was just like that industry or that kind. No, it's fairly universal.
Yeah.
And I'm certainly not here to say that operations is not important. I'm certainly not here to say that operations is easy, because I've lived that world. But essentially, every business has to have revenue and profits. Otherwise, what do we have?
Correct.
Like if revenue and profits stop at Blue Hammer goes away, right? And that's how it is with every business, even churches. Like churches are businesses. Like we forget about that sometimes. So for me, I had to really just like not just accept that, but really have a higher understanding of that. And the more I dived in and learned the business, learned my role, learned other departments' roles, it just became so crystal clear. I was like, man, I gotta go figure out a way to move the numbers. And by numbers, I'm talking about dollars.
Yeah.
I gotta go move the dollars.
Yeah.
You know, in the fitness world and water parks, I didn't ever really move the numbers. So what did that do to my value? It just kind of kept my value basically where it was. And if my value did go up, it was just, an inch.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That's a very interesting one, right? Because certainly if you're in sales, you feel that way because you're in sales and everyone thinks that they're the greatest thing ever, right? But if you're in ops, you also feel that you're the most important piece because you're thinking, well, you can sell all that, but who's going to fulfill all of that, right? And it's a chicken egg, right? Yeah. It really, really is. And I'm with you on this, but I also want to say this: we're not the same business we are today without our ops team. Like as I could say that is with all the conviction in the world, and I can also say, listen, if there's no sales coming in, there's no jobs for anyone else in this business. There's no auditing. There's no estimating. There's no quality managing jobs. There's nothing to PC because there's no jobs coming in. So from that perspective, and then I think the other thing that folks have to understand is if you're bringing in $1 million, $2 million, $5 million of revenue, you're going to get paid more because of what you're bringing in. And if you get paid more, in theory, effectively, you're more valuable. Right? It's just like in sports. The guy who's bringing in, the most in jersey sales and bringing in points on the floor or the field is going to be the most highly paid player on the team. It is what it is. But I think it requires a certain level of maturity and be able to put your arrogance to the side and understand that. But also realize, listen, this is a team effort. And if all of us aren't doing this together, this whole ship sinks. One can't carry the other. They have to carry each other. And that's just how these businesses grow and turn into monsters. So I saw that shift happen, and I wanted to make sure we talked a little bit about that because some folks spend their whole professional career and life thinking otherwise, and it's a fallacy.
Actually, I want to add on to my answer as well. Now that I'm really thinking about it, the other trap that I fell into, kind of in the operations world, is that I wanted to do things that others were unable to do. Right. So like I felt like I was always really good at like interviewing and hiring and that sort of thing. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I want to go do that because not everybody is able to do that, which is good. Right. Like that's still a good thing to do. Or like customer interactions, like, okay, I'm really good at resolving these issues and these people over here are not as able as I am to go do that. Here's where I missed the mark in the operations mindset. I focused so much on that I forgot. I don't even know if I forgot. I think I just wasn't even aware of how important it is to go do things that others are unwilling to do. So once I started at Blue Hammer, I always call it a light bulb moment. I think you call it a paradigm shift. But like I started thinking, I was like, okay, I've never done roofing in my life. So what are the odds that I'm going to be better at roofing even a year in than some of these other people that have been doing it for a long time? I'm pretty talented in general, but like, what are the odds of that happening? Very low. It's like, okay, so what's my edge? I got to go do things that people are unwilling to do. Here's what I've noticed at Blue Hammer, and this is universally true with the other departments too. This is not specific to sales or estimating or anything like that. Quality, everybody, PCs, office. If you go do the crazy things that others are unwilling to do, you're going to get ahead more so, I think, in sales than in operations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well said. Well said. So you're here now, you started off as an estimator. Now you're running the estimating team. What's What's been the hardest part of working here at Blue Hammer? Not necessarily in comparison to the previous endeavor. What's just been the most difficult, challenging part of working here?
Yeah, I think just being incredibly uncomfortable. And I don't mean like physically. Sometimes I mean physically uncomfortable. You know, I was on a roof the other
you're
day.
on the roof,
I
a
think
steep
was-
one too,
was
from
a
what it
steep
looked
one,
like.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
like
was pretty
5'12".
Yeah, I was pretty 5'12". Okay, that's cute. But like sometimes I'll get like physically uncomfortable. But I'm gonna fix this thing real quick. I'm still getting used to this. I'm so used to the handheld.
Yeah, no.
This is better though. Yeah, so I just getting completely out of my comfort zone, talking to adjusters that have been doing this for like 25 years. Those are not fun conversations. Like, if you ever talk to a State Farm adjuster who's been doing this since like 1990,
Yeah.
that's not going to be a fun conversation most of the time. It's very uncomfortable. Having really uncomfortable conversations with the people that report to me, not reactively. Because doing it reactively is the easy part, right?
Yeah.
Like if somebody's like, hey, we need to talk. Well, no, I don't really have a choice. But if I go initiate that uncomfortable conversation and say some things that the other person does not want to hear, like that's not fun.
Yeah.
That's not the part of my job that I really enjoy. I enjoy the benefit of that. I enjoy watching people grow from that discomfort. And, you know, when I was in the operations mindset, it was almost like, oh, I'll deal with it when it like really hits me in the face or when that person brings it up. Well, that just stunts growth.
Yeah, 100%. So you talked a little bit about the discomfort piece. When did you know this thing was going to push you? Like,
When did I know it was going to push me?
When did you know like this career path was really going to push you? Like, was there a certain moment that you can think back and be like, oh shit, like I'm in this thing?
Yeah, I got really mad at you and Maria one day. This was in 2021. I don't know if you remember this conversation.
Probably.
Yeah.
Tell
So
me how it starts.
So I was chasing leadership, which I tend to do. I always want to get promoted and go do the next cool thing. And I remember like talking to you guys about it, and I was slipping up in a few areas, kind of like day-to-day stuff. It wasn't really my leadership stuff that I was just day-to-day. Like I wasn't touching my claims enough or
sure.
whatever it was. I don't remember, but I remember you and Maria proactively like grabbed me like, hey, let's chat after this. I think it was like on a Monday or something when we were like in person. You're like, hey, let's chat after this. I'm like, yeah, no problem. And I remember y'all told me, you're like, hey, you lack vision. Man, that stung. It pissed me off. I didn't agree with it at the time. Now I look back and I'm like, I totally lacked vision. But in the moment, you know, you don't really like hearing that, you know, and the message was pretty simple from y'all. It was like, hey, if you don't fix this, like you're not going to achieve what you want to achieve. And it really made me realize like, man, y'all were never going to just like let me be comfortable and like chill and not achieve my goals. And at that moment, I was just like, that's how it's going to be moving forward. And I love that. Not in the moment always.
Yeah.
Definitely not in the moment.
Yeah. Listen, tough, honest love is one of our core principles for a reason, right? Because that's specifically when you care so much about someone, then you got to tell them. And that proactive piece, I'm glad you brought that up, because if you can get ahead of it and help someone see something that they don't see, like a blind spot, I think you become more valuable to them as a leader. Because people know when they messed up 9 times out of 10, right? And they know it's coming. But when you can anticipate it, see it, address it, and then, you know, they may feel salty along the way, and that's totally fine, but they can learn from it and grow from it. This is your job as a leader. It's 100% your job as a leader. I do remember that. I 100% do remember that. Yeah.
You probably remember the look on my face. I was like, pisses me off.
And I'm pretty sure we could probably pull in Lenny or call her after this and be like, hey, I specifically was like, yeah, he's pissed. I said, but it's good though. He needs it. Yeah. Because listen, we knew, just so you know, because we can say it now, we knew you were going to be the guy to run it. We knew that a long time ago. But it was more of, one, I think when you earn something, it carries so much more value. You respect it more. You cherish it more. You will fight till the death before you let that thing go when it's fully earned. If it's given to you prematurely, early, you just, you didn't have to give as much to get it. So when it does leave you, it doesn't mean as much, right? I've got this saying that I'm a big, big believer in, and it's quick success builds ego, delayed success builds character. And ultimately, what we were doing is helping you build character. And through adversity and through tough, honest love is how you build character. Because if you took that the wrong way and you didn't respond the way that we thought David Broome would, you wouldn't be running the ET team. If you got in your feelings and then acted real emotionally and your performance declined, it's like, oh, he didn't take that well. That's not good if he's going to be a leader for us. That means when he's got a team full of 10, 15, 20, and we have to have some of these tough conversations, he's going to go take it out on his team, and the whole team performance will go down. So you passed that with flying colors, and you always have, actually. You've always took, almost every time that I can think of, you've took constructive criticism, tough, honest love well, even if you don't like it in the moment. And I know you go home and you sleep on it and you think on it, and then we start seeing a shift in behavior, and then it's like oh, okay, yeah, he sees it, and I respect that and I appreciate that, because as you know, being a leader, most people don't respond well when you have to correct them and tell them that they have to fix behaviors, and the ones that do, those are your future leaders. That's one of the telltale signs. The other one being, as I mentioned, adversity. When times are tough, shit hits the fan, it's not as busy as you want it to be, how will they respond? Will they keep the team spirits up? Will they get everyone to rally around and see the vision? And it's like, no, we're going to get through this, and we're going to get through this together, because here's what's on the other end. Great leaders have the ability to do that.
Have I shared with you that I'm not going to call it my favorite core principle, but it's the one that speaks to me the most, is tough, honest love. I don't know if I've shared that with you.
You have.
Yeah, and I feel really strongly about that. And, you know, I think it's one of the easiest ones for a business to do wrong and for it to really hurt the business. You know, loyalty, I'm not saying that loyalty, but loyalty, you kind of just choose whether or not to be loyal or to not be loyal, right? Sure. With tough, honest love, you can choose to like want to do that, and it's still really hard to do it. Because loyalty to me is almost like a lack of action, right? If I'm loyal, I'm just going to not go do certain things that would betray somebody.
Yeah.
But with tough, honest love, like you have to choose to proactively have the conversations, and you have to choose to respond a certain way positively when you're the recipient of it.
Yeah.
So that one's the one that I like the most.
I like something that you've always said, and I like for you to elaborate on this, because I'd like for existing folks, people in other businesses, maybe future, personnel that want to come join Blue Hammer. This is a very universal piece of advice, and the way you worded it, so please correct me if I'm wrong, which I'm never wrong, so you won't have to correct me. But you said you gotta work in the negative, right? Elaborate on that so people really understand what that means.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things to talk about, especially when it's somebody that reports to me that is wanting to move up in the company. And I've given that advice to people in other departments as well. But when it comes to working for negative, you always hear the word like working for free, right? I don't work for free. Or somebody's bragging like, yeah, I'll go work for free, like as almost like a flex, like look how valuable I am. And there is some value to that. I don't want to discredit that.
Sure.
But to me, when you work for negative, you're not just working for free. You're actually doing something that actually costs you. So here's a great example.
Whether it's time or money.
Time, yeah, and a lot of times they're the same.
Sure.
So for me, like before I got into this role, one of the things that I did to work for negative is I just like volunteered to go train people. Now, if you're on a salary and training people is part of your salary, that's not working for free and that's not working for negative. But if you're a pure commission person and the only way that you can make money is by doing your work and getting paid for what you do, and you choose to go spend 3 or 4 hours on a Tuesday or whatever to go train somebody, you're working for negative. Because you just spent not just your gas money, that's usually negligible, right? Mm-hmm. But it still exists.
It does still exist.
$10 worth of gas money is still $10.
Yeah.
But then you also donated your time. And what could I have done with that 4 hours of time? Could I have gone and made a $500 commission over there if I had used that time to my advantage instead of having a servant leadership mentality? So when I look for leaders and like war council, I've given this advice. I know some of the people listening may not know what that is. We can always circle back to that. But like when people want to get into the war council at Blue Hammer, or they just want to get into a leadership role, I tell them all the time, if you're not working for negative, you're not getting my vote. It doesn't have to be every moment of every day. It shouldn't be every moment of every day. Yeah. But there has to be some element of that where you're like, you know what? This isn't just going to cost me zero. It's actually going to cost me $100 or whatever that dollar amount is.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go do it anyway.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent piece of advice. And I don't think it's talked about enough because in your rise to becoming a leadership, whether it was here or the previous endeavor, I'm sure you did a ton of work for free or for the negative. And so did I. I've built a living off of doing that because there's this old saying, and I hate the cliche sayings, but sometimes when they're good, you gotta, pay honor to them. And it's, if you do a bunch of work that you're not paid for today, one day you'll be paid so much for, I don't even know exactly what it is, but
I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm saying. And what most people don't realize is you will not get paid for every little thing that you do. And if you are counting pennies and dollars along the way, you are focused on today's paycheck and you're not worried about the career. And that is a recipe for disaster because I promise you it ends the same. You will not get paid for every single thing that you do, and that will no longer be a career. It'll be just another job. And folks have to get out of that mindset because just like any great long-term investment, keyword being long-term and investment, it takes time. It takes time. And any good investment takes money as well. Nothing's for free. So you are investing some money and some time, but because you see the big picture and you see where it's headed, it's like, okay, worth it. May not be getting paid for it today, but one day it will come back and it'll come back tenfold.
You know what's interesting about and I'll talk specifically about like dollars, like money. I always think about direct and indirect pay. So here's what I mean by that. If I go do something and there's like a specific dollar amount attached to it, that's direct pay, right? If I go get this increase, I get a commission off of it, direct, great. Well, what if I just like go learn something? Like if you go learn something, there's not usually a direct payout from it. It's an indirect payout over time. Here's a great example. It was like 3 days ago. We had Anthony from Rafter come out, and that was the roof that I got on that you say was a 512. I know better. But two of our guys, it was Eric Monroy and Jake Soppy. They drove from like Fort Worth to like Richardson. So if anybody's listening, you're not in like, it was a long drive.
Yeah.
Their direct pay, 0.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't make them do it. They just wanted to do it. Well, they're going to get indirectly paid over the next, however many years, but you can't really measure it. So I think people get caught up in what they can measure. And don't get me wrong, you should measure a ton of things, KPIs and even like money tracking and stuff like that.
Sure.
But some of the best dividends in life, can't even measure them. You're just better.
Yeah, you really can't. And I think it becomes even more difficult when it's not in that scenario that you said, it's not even like you have education right there. You're just going to go help someone out or cover something for someone. And it's hard to sometimes see the light in that. But rules of God, universe, whatever you want to call it. But it was a Zig Ziglar quote. And he says, if you help enough people get what they want, ultimately you'll get everything that you want. And I'm a huge believer in that. The more we look after one another, the further ahead we all get together. It's as simple as that. And most, because they don't see the return. There was a guy that used to work for us. I'm not going to say his name, and there's a couple guys actually. I remember I was like, hey, we've got this going on. I'm going to go cover for this guy. Chico's going to go cover for that guy. Could you please go, cover for that guy? And I'll never forget. He was like, yeah, no worries.
How much?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And any idea where he's at today? Not with us.
I can guess.
Not with us. And I knew it in that moment. The moment he asked that question, I was like, damn it, I like this guy too. Why do you have to do that? And we didn't necessarily fire him because of that text message, but it was the mentality, especially when one of our first core principles is family, where we look after one another, we help each other out, and we, do all these things. And I was like, dang. So yeah, working in the negative for the negative is just so critical if you want to get ahead in life, whether it's here, any business, friendships, whatever. It's all one at the end of the day.
It's funny. Stephanie was so confused. This was years ago, but I was going to go host like a training academy for one of our newer estimators, and then I was going to like train them after that too. And so I was talking to, and I'd only been around at Blue Hammer for like a year or two. So Steph was still kind of getting used to like the ups and downs with the pay and totally different. She's just like kind of with me on like the peaks and valleys. And so I was going to go do this thing. And she's like, well, hey, she was like, hey, how much are they paying you to do that? And I just kind of looked at her and I was just like, oh, nothing. And she was just confused. She wasn't mad about it. Like she trusts me and all that stuff, but she was just confused. She's like, they're not paying you anything. I said, no, it's just gotta get done. So I'm gonna go do it. And I remember she was just like, so you're just doing it for free? I was like, oh, it's way worse than that. This is gonna cost us thousands of dollars. Yeah. I was like, I'm gonna train this person for the whole week. I can't do my job for that week. So this is gonna cost us a lot of money. And of course she's just sitting there. She's like, I don't get it. And I'm like, don't worry about it. It'll pay off later.
Yeah.
We'll be fine.
100%. So look, we're down to like our final 5-8 minutes ish. What advice would you give to someone that's interested in joining here?
Specifically Blue Hammer or roofing in general?
Let's talk Blue Hammer. I want a listener to be like, I've been thinking about joining roofing as a whole, and I've narrowed it down to these 3 companies, and maybe they have their own podcast or someone they're talking to, and you being an OG guy here, us spending time in a previous endeavor, now this one, you climbing your way up the ranks, you seeing this thing essentially from inception. You're one of the the OG guys that's been with us. What advice would you give to someone that's interested in joining us?
Yeah, so I think in that scenario we have to be really honest that like Blue Hammer is not for everybody, and that's okay. Like I don't try to make Blue Hammer for everybody. It's like dating. I dated some people before I met Stephanie, and
no, you didn't, sir.
You've
only
never.
Just that's right.
But like if I was dating somebody,
you,
but they were like, it's like a perfectly good human being, but that person just was not my soulmate.
Yeah.
So we break up, and then I meet Stephanie, and she's my soulmate, right? So it's very similar with business. So I think just understanding that, and I think the best thing that anybody can do is to really look at our core principles at Blue Hammer, and then really look at our culture, and just ask themselves like, hey, is this mutually beneficial? Is this the right fit for me? Am I going to, and I'll go back to those 2 boxes that have to be checked in terms of like job happiness or job satisfaction. Am I going to be satisfied with my pay? And am I going to enjoy the job overall? If I've heard people that say that they don't want to go be a project manager because they just hate the thought of knocking on doors.
Oof.
Well, then don't be a project manager.
Yeah, not for you.
Yeah, if you like,
that's okay.
You don't have to love it, but like you got to be able to power through it and find some joy in it in some pieces. So, yeah, you gotta make sure those 2 boxes get checked. I think it's a great thing for people to do to actually come spend a day at Blue Hammer before making a decision and literally just walk around and shake people's hands. You can get a really good feel for what we're all about just by shaking hands with people on a Monday.
Yeah.
It's like take a half day from work, put in PTO or whatever, and just come shake hands.
Yeah, 100%.
See if it feels good.
Yeah, 100%.
And if it doesn't, that's okay.
What's been the biggest thing? But you can't say hard work. What's
too generic?
It's
a terrible answer.
Yeah. What's the thing that separates, for lack of better words, the winners from the losers here? Can't be hard work, because we know that.
Yeah. Fire in somebody's eyes. So I've actually turned people away from Blue Hammer because I've sat down with them and maybe they check most of the boxes, right? And maybe we check most of the boxes for them. But honestly, like you have to be a little crazy to do this.
Yeah.
Like you can't be
like a lot crazy,
completely sane and do this. When I bring estimators on board, I always tell them, I'm like, you have to have at least like 1 loose screw in your brain to come do this estimating thing. And you probably have to have 2 or 3 to go on like the sales side as a PM. I have to see that fire in somebody's eyes. I like it when they have maybe like a little chip on their shoulder. I like it when people are like broke, which is weird. But like when people are broke and they wake up every day knowing that they got to go earn, those are some of the people that end up being really, really successful.
The broke, crazy people.
I was so broke. I had debt. And man, every day, I mean, it was like I was getting up earlier.
Different level of hunger.
Oh, man, it was just like,
back against
I
the
got to
wall,
go do it.
No other option. Got to figure this thing out. Those are some of my favorite people. I like broke. I don't like starving.
Agreed.
And I don't like starving because starving will have you do things that
Desperation.
Yeah, it may have you do some things out of character. It may have you take advantage of people. You're trying to feed your kids, your family, and you are starving. And as a man, you will literally do anything. I don't like starving, but I do like broke.
Starving is also a distraction, not in a good way.
Yeah.
Because all you can think about, like if you're trying to figure out where you're living, like joining Blue Hammer is not like now is not the right time. Get your living situated. If your car is about to get repossessed in the next 30 days, Blue Hammer's probably not like get that settled.
Yeah, here's one thing I've learned about stress, and I love stress. You probably know this about it. I love putting stress on people, and I love embracing stress. Stress brings out a different savage in you. It starts working different neural pathways. It gets the best out of you. However, I will say this. The worst kind of stress I've seen is financial stress. Because in this business, if you are knocking doors, right, and you are stressed to the max because of finances, you will fail. And I'll tell you why. Because sales is a transference of energy and it's a transference of feeling. And when you are worried about, man, what if they show up and pick my car up and I have no way to get home? Or, hey, if I get home, the lights aren't on. Or, hey, if I get back and there's an eviction notice on my door, you cannot fully function as a human being. That financial stress is a true crippling thing. And I hope most folks don't have to go through it because your whole body starts shutting down at some capacity. For most folks,
It's engulfing.
Some stress is good. That stress, you got to get out of it, and you got to get out of it ASAP. Here's the thing, though. There's only one way out. You know how it is? Through. The only way. I got one last question for you. We're going to start wrapping this thing up, Broome.
Ready.
You've got this thing, and I just want to know the origin of it, okay? You've got this thing that I like to call the Broomism, right?
Broomism.
It's where you're up
Where are
on
you going
stage.
with this?
Yeah, well, it's
Oh,
the
man.
Broomisms,
All
right?
right.
You're up on stage, and you're talking, and you're like, you know what? I really dislike my wife. And then it's a long
I've never said
story
that. I've never said that.
Listen, I've got it on videotape. You know we record everything around here, sir. It's a story that starts off like, I'm not really proud of my kids. And then it turns out to this long story on how you love them and you're so proud of them. And it's like this whole wraparound
Michelle's
story.
over
And
there
they're
laughing.
great. Yeah, and they're great. And they're great. And I've seen you do it with, in so many different ways. My question is what's the origin of that?
I don't even know if there is an origin to that.
come
Let
on.
me. All right. Let's dig. I'll dig
Let's
deep.
go back a little bit.
All right, I'll dig deep. I tend to like if I get the opportunity to be on stage, which I kind of like it, and public speaking, I kind of like it.
Yeah.
When I get up on stage, I tend to be the person that I would want to watch.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you remember this. I think you probably will because that was probably 2 or 3 years ago. You told me you were like, "Hey man, you're being like too goofy sometimes up there." And I'm like, "Oh." Shit. I'm like, yeah, you're right. Okay, but the reason that I do that sometimes is that I try to be the person that I would want to like watch. I speak the way that I would want somebody to speak that I'm listening to. And I think that, sometimes with those Broomisms, as you would call it, I think sometimes it's just, if you draw it out just the right amount, it lands a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Sometimes I drag it out too much. That happens. But, if you just get up there and you just say something and it doesn't, it's like a 10-second speech or a 30-second speech, it doesn't land really well.
Yeah, it just hits different.
Yeah, but if I get up there and
It's an attention grabber, right?
Yeah,
it's like the Instagram hook when you're like, or TikTok hook, right? When someone says something like, something just outlandish, and you're like, "What?" And it gets them to lean in, and then you listen to the rest of it, you're like, ah.
Yeah, I do that every anniversary for me and Stephanie. I do this super long Facebook post. It's ridiculous, and I just list all the things that you did this, and you didn't put that up, and you don't like my spaghetti sauce, and just stupid things. And then I try to end it with the most sentimental, nice thing ever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's just doing something that's just a little bit different.
Yeah.
Because nobody wants to listen to the same thing all the time. You're a great speaker and you do really well on stage, but even with you, like there've been times where I'm like, you got to rotate it. Like we're listening to you, and me too. It's like, oh, man, I've been doing that. So I got to bring in some variety. So yeah, I think I don't think that there was like one specific origin. I think it was just me trying to mirror like what I would want to listen to.
Awesome. My friend, thank you so much.
Enjoyed it.
Good having you. Thank you, brother.
All right, appreciate it.
Yes, sir.